So, in how I'm about to answer how far is too far, there's a lot of backing that goes behind it, but I only have a couple minutes, so I'm going to try to condense as much as I can. So, if any of my answers seem abrupt, I apologize for that. So growing up in a culture where it's basically been if you get an inch, take a mile, there have been a lot of questions about how far is too far. You know, we've made up this system of first, second, third base and home run, and we have these different idioms that are in place that kind of like represent all these different steps toward the ultimate goal being sex, being intercourse. When I was in high school, I think that the pastors had told me, you know, if it has the word sex in it, so there's like oral sex, it's probably too far. And I would even take it a step further than that. So sex is ultimately created to like make babies and to provide the two bodies become one in a marriage when it's consummated. So, but when we look at the orgasm part of sex, that is ultimately what ends up being what creates the children. So, when a male ejaculates with a sperm, that obviously goes to fertilize the egg, and then when the female orgasms, that helps balance the acidity level of the fluid so that it helps the sperm be able to move better. So when we examine that context of the biology of it, we see that if we take orgasms to mean something other than the fertilization of an egg in order to make a baby for conception, we then pervert what the ultimate meaning of an orgasm is anyway. So anything that leads to orgasm would technically be considered too far. And I mean, that even goes beyond just like, oh, above the clothes, because even dry humping can ultimately lead to orgasm, more so for men than for women probably, but there's stimulation that can happen over the clothes that can still lead to that. So when we start looking at that, though, I mean, Song of Solomon talks about not awakening the desire before the time is due, and I mean, like Matthew 5:28 talks about how if anyone's looked on someone with lust, that they've already committed adultery in their heart. So we have this call to purity, this purity of heart, body, and of faith, where we have the opportunity to experience the fullness of what God has to offer, which if we compromise in that, we may still experience like a happy, loving marriage, but it will still lack something that we can't experience anymore because we didn't fully follow God's law. We didn't fully so we can't experience the fullness of him. So there are like Christian marriages out there where people have not waited until they're married, and like they would still say, you know, they're happy and everything else, and I don't doubt that for a moment. But we never know what we're missing out on. If we don't go and do something, we don't really know what we would have missed out on. And so it's similar here, that if we choose to not abide by everything to the fullest degree, that we can't experience the fullness of what God would have to offer within it. And we can't even comprehend what it would be because we can't understand what it is that we're missing out on in the first place. So the catechism at 2519, I'm just gonna kind of wrap up with this. It tells us that we're the manifestation of divine beauty. So when we think about our bodies being temples of the Holy Spirit, actually being a manifestation of divine beauty, that's something that really resonated with me, and just understanding, like, respecting myself and respecting others, and understanding that, I mean, purity requires modesty, and there's, you know, modesty of the body and modesty of feelings, and we are called to respect both, and it takes sacrifice, and it takes something that doesn't come naturally and that we have to ask God's grace for, and he grants it when we seek him. So we have the options, but that would basically be what I would say, though. And I mean, they've done studies on, like, so guys like to French kiss because it actually imprints their testosterone on the female's tongue, so that chemical gets released. I mean, during sex or orgasm, there's oxytocin that gets released in the female's brain, which actually blinds us. I mean, it's the same hormone that gets released during childbirth and breastfeeding. So it's kind of this, you know, gonna block out what I don't like and only remember the good. And so that happens when a relationship is entered into physical intimacy prematurely. The woman actually cannot properly process who it is that she's getting to know. So that's another really big reason that we want to wait as long as we can, and truly be like sure that that's the one. And the only way to be sure of that is on the wedding day when we've gone through the whole process and respected God's will on that, his intentions. So, yeah, I think it's interesting. I'd be intrigued to kind of hear what your guys' views are on it if you're open to it. I know it's kind of a touchy topic, but if you're interested in sharing this with anyone to get their perspective, and I'll look forward to hearing yours and chatting in the comments. So happy Sunday, and I'll see you again next week.